Okay, here on Metal Talk, it gives me great pleasure to be in the company of Toby Jepson.
Hello everybody.
Many of you associate him with Little Angels and also lead singer of Fast Ray, Gun, even Dio's Disciples at one point.
That's right, yeah.
But we're here to talk about Wayward Sons.
Aye, absolutely.
New band.
Yeah.
Got an album, Ghosts of Yet to Come.
That's right.
And it is yet to come because it'll be out on 15th September on Frontiers.
That's it.
Hi Toby, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, great to be here.
It's a nice sunny day. And tell us about the album title, Ghosts of Yet to Come. That's quite an original title.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the title. It's the title track of the album. There's a song called "Ghosts Yet to Come," and I think really narratively that song is the central piece in the album in a lot of ways, because this record has a narrative that runs all the way through it. It's I think part of the reason why I wanted to make this record and put a new band together is because I've got a lot to talk about. I think we I personally believe that we've got a bit of a responsibility as artists to talk about stuff that's going on around us. So when I was writing the record, I had a very clear path about what I wanted to talk about, and Ghosts of Yet to Come is right in the centre of that. And really, what it is, it's holding up a mirror to what I believe is kind of currently some of the issues that we're dealing with as a society, not just on a UK basis, but on a kind of global basis. I mean, you only have to look at sort of Trump making the White House and lots of other things that are occurring around the world, and how society is changing, and how the internet and information overload and all the rest of it is affecting everything that we're doing and how we're approaching life. And that song specifically talks about this kind of like paranoia that seems to sort of exist entirely these days on everything that we do. And it's basically sort of saying, look, we're worried about things that haven't even happened yet. We convolute the problems. We overanalyze. We tie ourselves in knots with the problems, when really what we should be doing is looking at where we are, how we are as a people, and how we can live together and how we can make that better. Because we're all on the same planet. You know what I mean? We only have the one home. And I have a very, I'll make no bones about it, I am a very socialist person, and I mean that from a humanistic point of view more than a political point of view, really. That I've always believed that music specifically is the great leveller. I think, rock and roll has always been that place that I've gone to and gravitated to, not just because of the entertainment value, but I've always felt it's a safe haven for freedom and for the ability to talk about things that are important,
Do you think that's something that you haven't been able to do in all your previous bands?
I think that's true. I think I tried doing it a little bit in the Little Angels with things like Young Gods, and I think actually bizarrely, Kicking Up Dust, which is was me with the title of putting Wayward Sons in that lyric, which is what it was, the original Wayward Son. I was paraphrasing the Kansas song, obviously. I never made any mystery about that at all, of course. But really, that song, Kicking Up Dust, Young Gods, and various other tunes in the Little Angels were very much about the underdog, supporting the underdog, talking about the kind of the ethic of finding your way out, finding your way forward, trying to find positivity, standing up for yourself, that sort of thing. And I got a lot of that from people like, funny enough, like Ronnie Dio. I think people might look at Ronnie as an example of a rock star that wrote songs about Dungeons and Dragons, but actually when you read into the lyrics, if you think of something like Last in Line or Stand Up and Shout, all that, those great songs, they were very much the same thing. They were supporting, look, we're all in this together, we're an army, we're a society, we're a community, and helping people believe in themselves, and I've always really been affected by that, and I've always been very much affected by protest songs as well. I mean, I'm a huge John Lennon fan, all sorts of Neil Young, all these people, and I think boiling all that down into a sensibility was really an important part of what I wanted to do. And I think as I've got older, I've got grumpier and a bit more cynical, and also I feel a lot more able to just basically say what I think without worrying that it's going to somehow split the vote, or it's going to sort of disenfranchise me from a group of people. So I actually don't care about that. I think the reality is you've got to stand by what you believe in, and it's not gonna be appreciated by everybody. But that's not the point. The point is I want to talk about things and I want other people to talk about it. I'd rather people go, you know what, Jepson, you're talking shit. But actually, it's got a conversation going. You know what I mean? Because I can't expect everyone to understand what I'm talking about or believe in it,
or even agree with you,
or even agree with it. And the point is, for me, it's more important that we talk about things and we get on with the discussions. You know?
Excellent. And why now? Why now have you chosen to form a band? Because it's been a long time. You know, you have done sort of Toby and the Whole Truth sort of solo act. So why a band rather than a solo thing?
Well, I think I started out in bands, and I'm a band guy. You know, I like playing with other musicians. I want it to be about a group of people. You know, Little Angels were my best mates from school. You know, we went around the world for a number of years making records and touring, and it was the best time I ever had. You know, and I've tried being a solo artist, and to be frank, it doesn't work. Because putting my name against, my own name against music, in a way isolates it. Mm-hmm. It becomes something else. It's valued differently. And even though I've enjoyed those times, I mean, I put out a few EPs and they weren't particularly well recorded. They weren't something that I felt, unfortunately, had all the essence it needed. But that was largely to do with financing it, really, in a lot of ways. So when Frontiers came knocking, which is what they did, you know, I got the call from Serafino and Mario. I just, after some conversation and after some discussion about what it could and couldn't be, I thought, you know what? Because they said to me, look, we want you to make a solo record. I said, I'm not going to do that. I want to make a band album. And they went, fantastic, you know. Because I actually think there's a lot more you can hang your hat on with a band because you've got other individuals. And all the guys in the band, they're as fully committed to this band as I am. And so it was really important that was what it was, you know. And in terms of why and the timing, it felt right. There was no great plan. In actual fact, I'd given up on the idea of being in a band again in favour of being a record producer because I'd spent so much time, you know, touring with Dio and Dio's Disciples and Gunn and all these guys. But actually, the reality was, as much as I enjoyed that period, that was other people's music. You know, I mean, all right, in Gunn, which was a wonderful experience working with Jules and Dante and those guys, they were fantastic people. And we did write a couple of songs for the Pop Killer EP. The reality was I was actually singing all their back catalogue, really, and same thing with Dio, and that was an amazing privilege. But I came off the road with Dio and I just thought, I've loved this, it's been brilliant, and what a privilege, but next time I do something like this, I want it to be self-authored, I want it to be something creatively from my heart, and get back to that.
And tell us about band members. How did that come about? Was it chemistry? Was it like friendship there already, or did you put efforts out?
Yeah, I mean a bit of both really. I mean, I think I've known Nick Wastel, who's the bass player in the band, and he's also in Chrome Molly. I've known Nick for years. I mean, Chrome Molly were the first band that Little Angels opened for ever.
I was about to say, did you tour together? Yeah.
Oh, we did.
Yeah,
yeah. We had the same label for a while, Power Station Records. And Nick's always impressed me as a character and as a player. Fantastic bass player, real punk ethic. And when we got talking, we met at a wedding, actually a mutual friend's wedding, and he asked me to get involved with making Chrome Molly's comeback record, effectively, which was Gunpowder Diplomacy. And I was absolutely delighted to do that because I've always been really impressed by him and also with Steve and the guys and all that. And it was the original lineup we got back together. John was back in the band and all. So we made a record together, and within that situation of me making that record as the producer, we got chatting about what I was doing, and he was talking about what he felt, you know, maybe I ought to do. And at the time I was like, no man, I'm not going to do another band, I'm not going to do that. But he kept doggedly going, no, you're ringing me up and you know, we should work together and all that. And so when the time arrived, there was no other choice for me. So Nick was a real easy choice, and I rang him and he went, I want to do it, let's do it. Sam, the guitar player, who I think is a real find, he was in a band called The Trees and Kings from Leeds, who I produced a couple of years ago. And I recognised his abilities immediately from when I was working with the band. An absolutely extraordinary young man player, you know, brings a lot of the old school ethic, but has got very much his generation's approach to guitar playing. And so he straddles that fantastic line between it being between modernity, but also the great classics. So, fantastic guy. I mean, Phil Martini, a lot of people will know Phil from Tokyo Dragons and from playing with Joe Elliott. And also, you know, with Jim Jones and Spear of Destiny. And of course, you know, because those bands are so different, you know, but he's got everything any great drummer needs. He's got all that kind of experience and that sort of dexterity, but he's also still really spirited, and I think that's the key to it actually. I think what I wanted to find was a whole new bunch of people that just had that spirit. You know, it's nothing to do with age or anything like that. I mean, the very fact that Sam's 27 and I'm nearly 50 makes no difference at all to the way that we both believe in the music. I mean, he's probably sniggering behind his hands about us talking about our weak knees and stuff like that, or whatever we do in the band now. There are all those problems you get when you start reaching this age.
Well, you can laugh at him in advance.
Exactly.
You know what's coming for him.
Oh, I can say, hey, you wait, pal, you know. But, you know, the reality is, you know, it's nothing to do with that. When we get in the rehearsal room, when we, you know, once we start getting on stages together, I know that the feeling's the same. You know, the belief in it's still the same. And so it's really wonderful. And the only exception to the rule is working with Dave Kemp. You know, I mean, Dave was the saxophone player in Little Angels, but me and Dave have kind of kept working together for years. We've written songs together for various projects. And Dave's just been a close buddy of mine, and he is simply the greatest musician I've ever worked with. I mean, he can play anything. I mean, it absolutely puts me in the shade. You know, I mean, I look at Dave and go, you know, he makes things better. I mean, we keep using this phrase in the band that Dave just makes things better because he's a bit of a secret weapon, you know. I mean, he's an oddity and a character, but that's what I love about him. You know, he's like John McCoy at Gillan, you know. He's got that thing, you know, that sort of like. He's unusual. His approach to music's completely natural and instinctive, and so it was a no-brainer for me. I wanted Dave there, you know, and he's playing keyboards for me, and he's a staggering keyboard player.
What about the style of music? Because it's a little heavier direction than what you've been previously involved with.
Yeah.
Maybe Fastway is an exception.
Yeah.
But this is more of a heavy rock outfit.
It is, yeah.
Was that intended, or was that just where the chemistry flowed? Kind
of where the chemistry came from, naturally, really. But I think my taste have darkened as I've got older. I think that's very much that's just happened, you know. I mean, and I think a lot of that came from. I think getting older. Just again, you know, without wanting to put too much emphasis on it. I started listening to darker, more challenging music. I've also worked with a lot of darker, more challenging bands as a producer. I just feel that the energy contained in hard rock absolutely defines me as a person. And a lot of that comes from, you know, back of the Little Angels. When the Little Angels finished, I went through a huge learning curve. I mean, since that band split up, I've been in and out of bands, up and down. I've been in and out of the industry. I've worked in the film business. I've done this. I've done that. I've had kids. You know, etc., etc. And it all just kind of applies itself to a relook, a reinvention, a rebirth, if you like. And so yes, I think when we got in the room, and you know, we started working on the tracks. I'd spent quite a few months revisiting a lot of my favourite records, and actually, quite surprisingly, I rediscovered and discovered that a lot of my favourite music wasn't what I thought it was. I know that sounds kind of really odd, but I thought I'm going to be really honest with myself. I'm going to write a list. I remember one morning I literally sat for about 3 hours with a pad of A4, and I was like, I know a pen and paper might be sort of slightly odd to people, but it wasn't an iPad or something. But I sat with a pen and paper and I wrote down all the music that really influenced me, and it was everything from Blondie, Parallel Lines, Sex Pistols, GBH. I mean, I've been telling this story quite a lot, but one of my mates from back in the day was a guy called Barney, who was an Exploited fan, and we used to hang out together all the time, and he got me into the Anti-Nowhere League, and so we used to wander down the high street in Scarborough with him blasting out So What off his Master Blast like that, and I've got my Status Quo written in Biro on the back of my denim jacket, you know. But for me it was just great guitar music. It was just like, so actually, in lots of ways, I was as influenced by the punk explosion in the late 70s, early 80s as I was with, you know, hard rock and pop music, you know. So I genuinely have never made a discerning difference between it all. I just think great songs and great bands, that's what it is.
And that was a great period.
Exactly.
Late 70s, early 80s.
Probably the greatest period we ever had. I mean, you only have to look at the way that Maiden evolved out of the punk scene, and you know what I mean? And those great bands like White Spirit and Diamond Head and all those bands. And for me, if you listen to GBH, it's no wonder where Metallica got their music from. You know what I mean? So I think actually, I was as influenced by that as anything else. So when I started looking at that, I thought, actually, I've got taste in music that in a way that I'd kind of forgotten about, in a way. So I examined all that and filled what I'm calling filled the reservoir, and actually when I started writing off the back of that, I spent about sort of, I suppose, best part of 6 months coming up with ideas. It all was quite tough, you know. And I'm also a big fan of modern alternative music, you know, alternative rock music like the Queens of the Stone Age, etc. You know, and Caius and things like that, and a lot of that sort of stoner rock. I like a lot of that. So, I think I brought a lot of these things to bear on it, and the record came out as a result of that, bringing all the guys to bear on these things, and yeah, you know, I don't try and examine it. I just sort of think I just like that, you know.
Brilliant. And you shot 2 videos. There's going to be 4. It's going to be a quadrology.
That's right, the quadrology. Actually, there's a bit of a conversation about that because half the band think it should be quadrilogy, and I thought it was quadrology, so we're sticking with quadrology. So.
Well, I've written down my notes quadrology, so halfway there.
Well, there you go. Exactly. You made your own decision.
And in the videos, you've all given yourself little characters, you know.
It, yeah.
And you're the preacher.
That's right.
Sam's the gunslinger.
That's it.
Nick's the rocker. Dave the Don.
Yeah.
And Phil Martini's slick. I know Phil. Yeah, he's a slick guy.
Yeah, totally.
So are you the preacher in the band?
Well, I think you know what I was doing. That is obviously it's all very tongue in cheek. I mean, I've been getting these brilliant messages from people going. I had one guy from America saying, "I'm giving you a D+ for the videos. There's far too many FX shots." I'm like, "Oh, you missed the point here, dude." I'm not trying to be George Romero, R.I.P. poor old George, but it's tongue in cheek. It's you know, but it does, the ethic of the whole of these videos does go back to the record. That what I'm trying to do is, whereas it was George Romero was talking about an allegory of the problems with consumerism in America in the 70s, I'm talking about mobile phone zombies and society and all that as it is now. We're all, you know, so that sort of, you know, we're all believing everything we read in the Daily Mail or online, and it's all this sort of fake news nonsense and all the rest of it. The reality is we're all just human beings, and we should be looking between the lines and trying to figure it out. So the essence of the videos is that. But within that, each of the characters represents what I think is a trait of humans, you know. And because I know that I'm a bit of a gobshite and I can talk for England, I thought it was only fair that I was the preacher because I'm the singer. So there's no great mystery really, to be honest. But
where were those videos shot?
The videos were shot in a derelict area of Leicester, where they're about to knock down a load of the old factories, because it was a big area of clothing making back in the day, sort of thing. So we were really lucky because actually we rehearsed in a rehearsal where a lot of the videos were shot was actually in the rehearsal room we work in, because they've got the upper floors are totally derelict, and all the surrounding area that surrounds the factory is totally derelict. And we were really lucky because I literally was there yesterday rehearsing with the band, and they fenced off. I think VW have bought part of the land now, and they literally the week after we'd finished shooting the videos, they fenced it all off, so we couldn't even get there. So we were dead lucky about that. And it does look like a kind of like as if it's, you know, been bombed.
Yeah, it looks like an old World War II.
Oh, yeah, it's great. You know.
Is it a Rover car you're driving around in?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's such a cool classic car from the 70s. It's sort of a car that people have forgotten about in some
I know.
ways.
Well, I mean, it's not mine.
Yeah.
I've got to say, it's actually Sam's guitar. Cause Sam is as big a fan of old Rovers as he is as Gibson guitars. He's got as big a collection as old Rovers as he has guitars. I mean, he's an extraordinary fellow, is Sam. I mean, he's, you know, in a lot of ways, old before his time. But it was his motor, because I rang him and said, "Look, can we use your car?" He went, "Well, I'll get the old girl out, you know." I said, "Don't polish it." He said, "Well, why not? It's covered in bird shit." I said, "Perfect. It's a zombie apocalypse. We don't want it to be clean, you know." So it worked out great, you know.
Tell us about the album cover, because if you don't mind me saying, it looks like one of these sort of fresh album covers, you know, sort of cartoony, sort of three surgeons or a lady of, you know, Statue of Liberty.
That's it.
Tell us who did the artwork.
The guy that did the artwork is an incredible artist, British artist called Stuart Dilley, and Stuart's designer for Alchemy. I don't know if you know, if you remember on the back of Kerrang, it always used to have the Alchemy jewellery, and I think he's been the main designer for that for years. And Stuart worked on a couple of things for Little Angels back in the day, and he designed the last Little Angels Devil's Face for our Reformation tour. And I just rang him up and sort, because I had this idea, because what I wanted to do with this whole record really was bring in. Because initially it obviously just started with me before I found the guys for the band and all this. So I was kind of like trying to sort of channel a lot of the things that made me tick as a human, and the things that influenced me massively in my life. And a massive part of my life when I was a kid was comics. I mean, I was a huge comic book collector. Specifically the 1950s reissues of things like Weird Tales and and those kind of like 1950s McCarthy era comics, which were really, they were clothed and sort of secret versions, if you like, or secret stories about what was happening in America. There were people actually, there were protest stories really about the witch hunts and all the rest of it. So I collected a lot of those comics, and I had a huge collection for years. So when I was thinking about this album, because of the narrative, because of the kind of like but because of the political, social sort of connotations of my sort of view on the world, it really fed into that idea. And I love comics, and I love comic book art because you can do anything with it. You can draw and bring any kind of stylization in you want. And because I had already had this idea of doing the zombie apocalypse, I kind of wanted to create this kind of world of comics and comic books and use that as a way of sort of delivering the message. So it's an extraordinary piece of art. I mean, I sort of sent him the brief, and I said, look, don't tell me anything. Just send me a piece of work that you think is going to work. And he came back with that, and I'm like, man, that is spot on. So we didn't change anything really. It was just sort of, so I'm absolutely delighted by it.
I've got 4 gigs coming up.
Yeah.
I imagine the gig in Bristol was our little warm up.
Yeah, that's it.
And you've got 3 festival dates on the 28th, Rock and Blues Bike Custom Show.
That's it.
The little hairy bikers there,
Yeah, looking forward to that, yeah.
We've got the Rambling Man Fest.
Yeah.
And also the Stillhouse a day later.
Yeah.
So what can people expect from your live shows?
Well, obviously they're varying in terms of set lengths for a start. I mean, Rambling Man, we're playing the Rising stage, which is completely fair enough. It's a totally new band, so I don't think we're playing all that long. I think we're playing half an hour.
Half an hour, yeah.
So, in essence, it'll be what we feel is the central ethic of the record. I mean, I'm not gonna. I play, on the longer sets, I'm playing a couple of Little Angel songs because I feel, I'm not going to be stupid, and a lot of the fans are going to be ex-Little Angels fans or Little Angels fans. And I want to, specifically there are songs that absolutely are part of my history that are really important for this project.
I think you mentioned 2 earlier, would lyrically fit into the set perfectly.
Well, so there you go. So it's important that I sort of, I don't want to dismiss the past. Of course not. The only reason I can sit here talking to you is because of that past. But we want it to be about this record. So we're taking a bit of a risk. We're going to go and play absolutely brand new material to a whole group of people who've never heard of the band, probably. But I think actually, to me, that's kind of the challenge, and part of the joy of it is that we're going to have to go out and we've got to live by what we've got here. There is no hiding.
In some ways, there will be some people in the audience at the festivals who may not be aware of Wayward Sons, and I'm thinking, is that guy from Little Angels up there? So it's a challenge in itself.
Oh, mate, listen, but therein lies the joy, because if you can transfer your music from something somebody's never heard before, and you can have them clapping by the end and they're hopefully singing the chorus, or at least they're appreciating it, then you've done your job. Obviously we've had the 2 songs out, until the end and Alive have been out, and I think by the time we've got another song dropping at the beginning of August actually, but so we've got those 2 songs, and there'll be a couple of Little Angels tracks going to play, so there'll be some that people will have heard, hopefully. But if they haven't, I still regard it as a challenge, and what am I going to do? This is the music I've got, So.
And you just mentioned it. You are on the Rising stage, Rambling Man Fair, which obviously the Rising stage is loads and loads of new talent.
Yeah.
Some of them have been on the scene for a couple of years, but. Which of those bands would you recommend? Because I know you do keep your eye on the current.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's a lot of talent out there. I mean, I think Stone Broken is a good example of a band that have come from really well.
Yeah, they make it onto the main stages.
Exactly, fantastic. And I just, it's so difficult to get your head above the water these days. Really tough, really, really tough. I mean, I've been through it with a couple of bands like I worked. There's a band from Bristol I've been working with, which were called Black Wolf. They're now called Illustrators, and I've been working with those guys for a while. And they're a great band. I mean, they're not playing Rambling Man, but they're an example of.
I think they played last year.
Yeah, a great band who working hard and trying their hardest to get through. But I think are Massive Wagons playing this year on?
No, it's a band called Massive.
Oh, Massive, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I keep my ear to the ground. I will definitely be watching the stage without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I'm always looking out for.
It's actually a good stage to watch all weekend.
Fantastic.
If you're used to the main bands.
Absolutely. I'm never ceased to be impressed by anybody who has the balls to put a band together and get out there and do it. And I kind of get bored of hearing people saying, "Oh, hard rock's dead, rock's dead." You know, come on, for crying out loud. Yeah. There's tons of talent out there. The industry's changing, but why wouldn't it? You know, we have to roll with the punches. But the talent is no less. I think the only thing that I think the only thing that matters really is songs.
Yeah.
I think the reality is whether you're whatever kind of music you're making, you've got to have something to say. And I think that might be the only problem I've come across actually with a lot of the bands I work with is not a lot of the time they don't really know what they want to say. But I think that's evolution. I think you've got to get started and then you find out what you want to say as you're going along.
Talking of new bands, you know, a lot of people say, well, the finance, the money isn't there in the industry like it used to be. But in all truthness, back in the 80s and 70s, unless you were a top 40 band, was there money there? Because a lot of bands didn't make money really back in the old days.
Listen, Little Angels, we came out of Scarborough, you know, we came out of a tiny little northeast town, you know. We had to self-finance ourselves entirely. You know, we thought we were going on a big road trip when we were playing a gig in Leeds, which is 40 miles down the bloody road, you know, because the reality was the world was not as expansive as it was, you know, or easily accessible as it is now. I think it's smoke and mirrors. I think the internet has got as much to blame as it's got to be praised for. Because actually, the problem you've got now is that it's like white noise. I mean, there's so many bands coming out of there. Everyone's got a platform. It's easy to record. It's cheap to record. But just because you can doesn't mean to say that you should. You know, I think the great thing about back in the day was, and probably the thing that sorted out the wheat from the chaff in a lot of ways, was the fact that you had to work really hard. To get us out of Scarborough to go and do some shows meant you had to get in a van and drive. I remember the first few shows we ever got outside of Scarborough and outside of Yorkshire. We're in South Wales. We got a promoter from Bogies in Cardiff who went, "I love your band," because he'd heard some demo from somewhere or whatever, however that had happened. And we ended up playing at Bogies and Tonopandi Naval Club and Mysteg 47 clubs down in South Wales. So we used to get in the van on a Friday night or something and drive 350 miles to go and play in Cardiff, and then drive back on a Sunday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we had to do that. If we didn't do that, we didn't exist.
Yeah.
Because you can't exist in a bubble in your own environment. This is part of the problem with the internet, is I think a lot of bands think, oh, everything happens on the internet and we're going to become a big band because the internet's going to make us a big band. It's just not true. You have to get off your arse and get in a van and do... Actually, it's the same.
You've got to take it to the people.
It's
like
the bloody same.
Yeah.
Find a place to play, go find your audience, be good. You know, rehearse. Concentrate on the songs, concentrate on the music, and be good. So all this kind of idea that there isn't as much talent, that is not true. Actually, there's tons of talent out there. There is a band in a bedroom right now, either in this country or in America or in a garage somewhere in Portugal or in Germany, that will be the next headliner in 15, 20 years' time, because we have to have them. You know what I mean?
I think the golden rule is just don't give up. Just keep on doing it.
Absolutely. Why would... Do you know what the only problem is? The thing for me, there has been a disconnect between what the original ethic of rock and roll was about. Because when I was a kid, I had my careers officer when I sat in front of him like that, you know, in my school uniform, and he went, "What do you want to do, boy?" And I went, "I want to be in a rock and roll band." And he went, "Don't be stupid, boy." I mean, that was his answer. You know, and there wasn't music colleges, there wasn't contemporary music colleges. There was none of that. There was no internet, etc., etc. So really, to be in a rock and roll band was kind of anti-establishment. It was a way of flicking the finger up to authority. Of course, we know all this, you know. But now, the rock and roll business, if it's made any mistake at all, is the establishment. You know, it's not frowned upon to pick up a guitar. In fact, parents are pushing the kids out the door and saying, "Go and learn how to do that." Because actually, the X Factor generation believes that there's a sense of entitlement with music now. And in many ways, that's the disconnect for me. Is actually the reason why I did it is because I want to go, you know what, fuck you. I will say this, and I want to be this, and I want to do that, and I'm going to do it because you don't like it. That's what I wanted to do. And so in many ways, that's probably why it's been watered down, because that isn't the ethic anymore. It's YouTube, you know, instructional videos now. It's, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But actually, a lot of bands don't know what they want to talk about.
Really, just got to get there, learn the hard way, get experiences, and sing about life.
And learn from your life experiences to put that into your music, you know, and that's where it really comes from. You know?
And just before wrapping this interview up, and I'm sure you've been asked this question over and over and over again, but Little Angels, #1 album, gig at the Albert Hall, and then let's call it a day.
Yeah.
Well, you were mad?
Yeah, you think, wouldn't you? I don't know, mate. Listen, God, dear. I mean, where do I start? I mean, we became a victim of the time. You know, I don't believe that if we'd have stayed playing, that the band would have disappeared. Because there was this whole thing that, because Nirvana was happening and the whole grunge thing was kicking off, that music was changing. Yes, of course, music was changing. But we found ourselves in a position that was untenable because the record label were nervous about the band being able to carry on, because radio was beginning to change because they weren't putting as much of our type of music on the radio, whereas we'd started off with Bon Jovi and Def Leppard on Radio 1, which was completely unusual, and all of a sudden, you know, we did 10 performances on Top of the Pops.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of recording them at the time.
It's ridiculous, right? But of course that was all starting to slow down, so I think there was a kind of like, the impact of that music revolution was amazing, but we had just played to 7,500 people at the Royal Albert Hall, and...
Was the decision made before that gig or after?
It was made before.
And what was the in the dressing room afterwards?
It was terrible.
Because the Albert Hall was an amazing place to play. It's an amazing place to sit as a punter.
Listen, it was absolutely dreadful. I mean, I mourned the loss of our band for 10 years. I really did. It was difficult, really difficult. And I didn't understand why we'd split up, I'll be honest. I know that sounds incredibly naive, but I didn't understand why we'd split up. It had kind of been foisted upon us. That we'd been talked into it by various people.
Yeah, financial reasons, blah blah blah.
All sorts of reasons, and there was this whole kind of idea that we couldn't survive anymore. And I'm looking out at the Albert Hall with them 7,500 kids, a lot of them which were absolutely visibly upset by the fact the band was splitting up. And I'm thinking, I don't know why we're doing this. That's the truth. If you want the honest truth, I didn't know why, and it took me years to get over that. And actually, I feel, you know, quite disappointed by that, really, because the reality is it might have been a bit more difficult, but if we'd maybe taken a hiatus and hadn't split up and then come back 3 years later when the heat had died down, we might have been able to make another record and carry, you know what I mean? Probably could have carried on, but I just think the will wasn't there. I think the reality was, in the people that controlled the band and the way that we were set up as a group of people, the will wasn't there anymore. It was for me, genuinely. I wanted to carry on, but it's not just about me, it's about a whole group of the people, and by that point we're part of a major label. It was just a huge unwieldy machine, and those things are amplified. It becomes massively amplified, you know. But anyway, to put a more positive spin on it, here we are. I might be older and a bit gnarly, a bit uglier, but the point is I still just exactly the same amount of energy that I had about making music than I did back in the day, so I'm just chuffed to bits that I can even be doing it again, you know.
And if there's any future ambition, just get back to the Albert Hall.
Absolutely right. Hey man, I tell you what, you know.
Stranger things have happened.
Absolutely, and I genuinely mean this. I want to work this band and give it every chance I can. And for me, the sky's the limit. Why not be as big as the Little Angels again? Why not play Hammersmith or the Royal Albert?
It takes one song to get you noticed.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you know, that I also recognise the fact it takes it's incremental steps. You've got to do one step to figure out where you are, to then take the next step to get that, you know, blah, blah. It's not. I don't believe. I have absolutely no sense of entitlement about this at all. I don't believe because I was in the Little Angels I've got any right to be anywhere. I genuinely mean this is not false modesty. I genuinely feel privileged that anyone gives a toss. I really do. I think the audience were always, they're the smartest people in the world, the audience. They know when something works, when something is real and not. And the biggest, my biggest desire with this album was to make a record that was real. Whether people wanted to take part in it or not, I have no control over that. But I am 100% happy with this record. It might not be completely right, and I know that we'll be able to broaden it and we'll change it, but the fact is I believe in this record. I believe that we've done something that is real. And I hope that people understand that.
Brilliant. Toby, I can sit here all day and talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Wayward Sons, the album Ghost of Yet to Come. Out on the 15th September on Frontiers, and we'll see it at one of the festivals. I shall see it at Wembley Man myself, so looking
Thanks for
forward to
watching.
it.
Thanks
very much. All the best for the future. Thank you.